Yes, before understanding today's concept, just try to recollect it, what we were understanding yesterday, and then we continue. Yeah, yesterday, if you remember that main two concepts we are trying to understand from the shell. One, it was with the types of the shells, which are available from the shell scripting. But which type of the shell you are using, almost that approach is the same, some little bit syntax wise and yeah, the commands point of view, the difference. But yes, working with that, the main about our approach is the born again shell, that is a bin bash, or some like some containers whenever we are working with that, with a base, a basic shell, which we can say the born shell, which we use it, either this one or this one. But mostly that is a bash shell. But we have the C type of the shell, K type of the shell, G type of the shell, or Python itself, we can use it as a shell. Yeah, there are different approaches. But how do we define that which type of the shell are we going to use it to run that? The sequence of the commands which are defined in the shell script is, that is with the shebang option. So what is the syntax of the shebang is, yes, hash, exclamatory, then the type of the shell, that is a binary file path location, we need to define it. Is it a bin sh or bin bash, or is it a user bin python, or is it a C shell? So which type of the shell required to execute the commands? That's we can define with the shebang option. This is the first and foremost line of the shell script. But if you don't define that any type of the shell, then default it is going to take it from the operating system. So that is, it is going to use that the environment variable, that is a $shell. So the $shell, if you just observe the by default all these OSs which are using the bash shell. Yeah, that is about the first one concept. How do we use it? The type of the shell whenever we are executing the shell commands in the shell script. Then we can define the sequence of the commands in the shell script. Yes, order based it is going to execute it. So first this command and second this command, like that, one by one order it follows whenever we are executing the shell script. And we can define that the comments also with the hash. Yes, what is the meaning of the comment is, the interpreter is going to ignoring these lines during execution time. So these are all for about our internal reference of the script. If you would like to describe about the logic, yes, we can define that logic in the, or the description of the logic in the comment section. So as a best the programming approach, what is the recommended approach is, before going to write any logic, first describe about that logic, then go for implementing the logic. Yeah, that is about comments, how to define in the shell scripting. Then we started understanding about variables, how to define in the shell script. Yes, variable format, yes, variable name equals value. Yeah, this value we are assigning to this variable. That means, so in the memory, during executing the script in the memory, the value which is going to storing in the format of this variable. And how do we read the variable in the shell scripting? So what all the notations are available once the variable has been defined? How do we read the variable?
With dollar symbol and a dollar symbol flower bracket.
Yeah, with a dollar we can use it, or dollar with the curly braces. So that is on the base of the requirement and the use case, which we can use it that. Yeah, that is about accessing the values of the variable. That is with the dollar. And make sure that we should not have any spaces between the variable name and variable value. So if you use it the spaces, then it is going to consider as a, this is the command and these are all the arguments to that command. That is also one observation which are doing that. And then finally, the what we are trying to understand, okay, we didn't start the read-only variables. And variables, whenever we are defining, we have the valid variable names. Yes. So it supports whenever we are defining the variable names, it supports either alphabets, small letters or the caps letters, or you can use it the numeric and underscore. But you cannot use it the special characters in the variable name, and as well as variable name must start either with underscore or alphabet. So you should not use it underscore, you should not use that, the numeric in the variable starting. Yeah, so these are all some points that which we are trying to understand that, and as well as we are trying to the working with that some examples of this script. Yeah, script has to be, script should be defined with executable permissions before going to executing. And how do we execute the script? That is a dollar slash and the script name. And file extension of the script must be .sh. And we are using about it the shell script running the Python commands with the shebang option. Shebang with the Python. Yes, so we are able to run the print command. Actually, print is a function from the Python. And variables are defining and understanding and reading about these variables. Yes, until that switch I have done that. Are you clear about these points? Any queries, questions, please let me know.
Yes, we are good for now.
Okay, good. Yeah, so let me access the system. So that is mobile system. Is this? Let's log into that. So already my background system is background running that. I'm not touching anything. 192.168.33.10 and username as a background. What's happened? 192.168. So let me restart the mobile extra. So maybe it's having some issue. Okay, good. Yeah, yesterday, if you just observe that variables, some script which we are using, and we are understanding this script, right? Yeah, so now let's go for this extending some more points on this the scripting within the with the variables itself, with the variable concepts itself. So that is next concept. What do we have to say is how do we define the read-only variable? Normally, suppose here the variable whatever we have defined, can I change the value of this variable? So now I have assigned this the bash value, and within the script, suppose if I go to this, yes, let me use it. This ing not required, right? Actually, my shell is a variable. So after this, what I do is I again try to reassign this value with the value as something. Let me define that. We have a basic shell, that is one shell sh, and if I try to use it, that echo dollar and that variable, that is my shell. So what is that output we are going to have it with this? So here, what is the value it is going to printing that? Here, use the chart window quickly to type it.
First line bash.
Yeah, first line is bash, and second one is
Bash sh.
bash sh or sh or empty. What's going to happen that?
sh. It will overwrite the previous.
Yes, it will override the value of the previous. So this is just assignment. So the bash here I have assigned, and after that I'm going to reassign another value. That means in the memory to this variable, so it is going to overriding that. It is going to save this in the memory as sh. So bash will be overridden. Suppose if I just run that script, yeah, the bash is printing first variable, and second, yes, we have reassigned that value. Reassigned. The same variable is the same, but I have changed the value of the variable, and it is updating to the memory. Suppose if I define this variable as a read-only, what's going to happen that? Now what's going to happen that? Can you give me that?
Going to print bash.
Only sh will be print.
Yes. Second line only the printer. First line read only. It is not a variable.
We
Yeah,
cannot rewrite that one. Only read. We cannot overwrite that one.
okay. We cannot overwrite it, the value of the variable.
Overwrite.
Okay, so what's going to happen in this line?
Only sh.
Finally, here what is that output, and here what is that output, or are you going to get this output or not?
Output.
Yeah, please.
Output is bash only 2 times.
Output is only bash 2 times. Okay, good. Yeah, let's run it that's and observe that output. Yeah, once the variable is defined as a read only, the name itself is saying the read only. Yes, first value it has been taken that. So first, whenever you are declaring the variable, first value is a bash. But after defining that, after defining this variable as a read only, again I am trying to assigning the value to this variable. So you marked this variable as a read only variable. Then once it is marked as a read only variable, how do you write into that? Suppose you have the file which is the read only file. Can you write it? So if you'd like to write it, it throws exception because you don't have the right permission. You can read it only, but you cannot write it. The same concept here, variable. If you declare the variable as a read only, that means that variable value is static. You cannot change it that. So that's why it is saying this, yes, bash. Okay, it is printed. But yes, here in this, whenever you are reassigning that, there it is throwing that error. What is the error it is throwing? That line number 4. Yes, at this line number 4, my shall read only variable. You cannot reassign it. Yeah, sometimes the variables, if you're defining that any server IP addresses or environment variables, yes, once this variable has been defined, you should not change the value of the variable. Then what you can do this is you can mark that variable as a read-only variable. If you mark the variable as a read-only, so yes, what of the initial, what of the value you have assigned, only that value, you cannot override it. But if I remove this read-only, yes, you can override it. You can change the value of the variables. Are you clear about that read-only keyword?
Clear, sir.
Yeah, so read-only variables, the shell provides a way to mark variables as a read-only by using the read-only command. After a variable is marked read-only, its value cannot be changed. So for example, yes, following the script would give that error while trying to change the value of a name. Suppose the name contains some value to this. And if you mark it as a read-only variable, after marking the read-only variable, you cannot reassign the value to the variable. So this line throws error. That is, you marked this one as a read-only variable, but you are trying to write the value of this variable. It doesn't accept it. It is the same thing like a file. File, once it is marked as a read-only, you can just use it for the read, but you cannot write it. The same concept at the variable level. Yeah, so this will produce that the error that is saying about it, this variable is read only. Yeah, so that is one more the example. So whenever we are declaring that the variables, yes, if the variable is required to change the values, yes, you can change it. But if the variable should be declared as a read only, that means we don't want to change the value of the variable, then mark that variable as a read only variable. Yeah, that is one more point. Yes, declaring the variables as like, I mean, the dynamic, yes, you can keep on changing the values if it is required, or if the variable is required should not change the value in the entire script, then you can mark the variable as a read-only variable. So next, move into that.
Sir,
Yeah, please.
so, here one you assigned, right? So dollar can be assigned here.
The way.
Here in the example, name equals to.
Okay. So this example you are talking about it here.
Yes, sir. Yes.
To dollar. That's I'll come back. What is this $1, $2? Okay, just wait some time.
Okay. Sir.
No,
Because yeah, this is actually special variable which we have from
Yeah,
the
we have special variable
yes, special
0 to
variable.
9, like.
Yeah, from the shell. So it is the special variable has been assigned. It is not actually the value.
Okay.
So this is another variable.
no, how is this read-only variable used in real-time scripting?
Yeah, suppose you are defining this like a server IP addresses, or you are going to use it some usernames or passwords or environment variables. But that environment variable throughout the script, whenever it is executing, it has to use the same value. if any other process or if any other user is trying to change it also, user in the sense the process, even if it is trying to changing also, it should not change it. So those cases you can mark the variable as a read-only variable.
Thank you.
Yeah, suppose sometimes the same script which will be processed by the two processes. So one you are executing normal through the shell, and the same script is executing through the some cron job also. During processing these two jobs at the same time on the script, but the values of the variable should not be changed. Whenever it is a processing this in the entire script, the value of the variable should be constant. But if any process is trying to changing also, it should not change the value of it. So if you have that kind of scenario or use case, then you can use it. Mark that variable as a read-only, or any process is trying to reassign that also, it won't be changed the value. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so let's move into this next another concept. This is also variable, but here in this example, we are assigning the value directly within the script itself to the variable. But I don't want to define that. I would like to give this option to the user. User, if you would like to want that bash shell, yes, he can enter the bash. Or if you'd like to use it, normal shell, yes, he can enter the normal shell. So we need to give that option to the user. Was enter this, enter the shell type which you are looking about it, or which you prefer it. So you need to prompt to the user. This is the point, prompting. That means the value, whatever we are going to use it for this variable, we should prompt to the user. How do we prompt it? Yes, in this script, if you just observe that, we can use it. So the read-p is the option. So let me go back to this. So now here we have assigned that's a variable value, right? Instead of assigning this, I'm going to remove that the read-only option. That you just know that the read-only variable concept. Suppose here I don't want to assign directly the value. I would like to prompt to the user, which shell do you prefer that? Enter the type of the shell. That means the read-p and enter the message that is saying about it. Enter the type of shell. So whatever that's the value he's going to enter that, we need to read that. That is, suppose let me define that variable as shell type. That means whatever he's going to enter that, we are going to catching, or we are going to assign that value to this variable. Now, instead of hard coding the bash here, what I would like to do that is, I would like to read this value and assign to this my shell, or I can use it directly the echo. Instead of using this, or let me take it this my shell anyway, we are using that. The dollar within the curly braces, we can read the value of this variable. So this is, we are reading from the user. We didn't hard code the type of the shell. So we are prompting to the user, and the user, what are the value he is going to enter it. So that's we are going to catching, and we are going to assign to this my shell variable. Then here we are going to trying to print that you opted the shell type Yeah, so some message displaying that. Suppose if I run it now, this script. Now you see this, it is a prompting to the user, enter the type of the shell. Now he, on the basis of his interest, whether he wants to go for the bash or shell or Python, so he can define that. Suppose if I define that sh. Yes, now you opted the shell type as, please mute it. Yeah, so now it is whatever the user has entered that has been taken and it has been assigned to the. Yes, now I didn't hard code that any value over here, right? So value we are taking from the user and that value we are assigning to this variable, and this variable we are using the script, or directly you can use it this variable also, that's fine. But anyway, we are using this variable. So before directly we have assigned this value over here, but now I am taking that's a value of the variable from the user. Yeah, sometimes yes, the scripts whenever you are running about it, yes, you need to enter that IP address of the system or username or passwords. Then if you are going to implement those kind of the scripts, then first of all, how do you take the inputs from the user? So this is prompting to the user. Yes, you are taking that, or you are asking the input from the user. So how do we use it? Read -p and give the message, and whatever he is going to enter that catch to this variable. So this is a variable that will be assigned, and that variable you can read it. We know that how do we read the variables in the shell script. But this is user, the value we are reading that. Is it clear about this point? The difference understanding before directly hard coded. Now if I run this script, if I enter the bash, yes, you opted the shell type as bash. So I didn't hard code that in the script, the value of it. I am taking from the user. Are you clear about this one? So reading from that the user prompts. So type this in the chat window, the clear. So what is the option we have used? Read -p and message with the variable name. That variable we are going to use it in the script. This is a script which are typed. Now next option is, suppose whenever you are running the script and it is prompting, right? Prompting is nothing but this is a manual input. Manual input. But in the automation world, are we expecting that whenever you are running the script with the human interaction or manual approach? Yes, user has to enter that. Then only it proceeds to execute the next commands. It is waiting for the user input. Okay, some scripts which are implementing where it is required that the user inputs, then you can use it this approach. But in the automation approach or in the CI/CD approach in the DevOps model, if I would like to use this script, no, I cannot use it this script because it is waiting for the user inputs. The process is waiting. But without waiting for the input from the user, but how the user can pass the dynamic value. So that is argument based. Yes, as we are talking about it, whenever we are invoking this script, you can pass the arguments. Suppose here if I pass the bash, so this is the first parameter or first argument, or we say that arguments are parameters also. So to this script, now I should able to pass it. Yes, bash shell I need it, or which type of the shell that is. Yes, you can pass the dynamic value. This value, whatever I'm passing with this script, the script has to read this one, and the script has to use this value. How do we define that? First one is directly within the script, assigning the value to the variable. This is the variable definition within the script itself. Next option which we are trying to understand is read only leave it of it. That is a constant value if you need it. Then you can use it, otherwise ignore it. Second approach what we are trying to understand is the user prompt. Yes, ask the user to enter the values of the variable. But this is in the automation world, it is not going to supporting that because it is waiting for that user inputs. Suppose midnight 12 o'clock you need to run this script. Then if you cron job using that and you have scheduled this job, but it is waiting for that user input, right? Then what do we need to do? So instead of using that user prompt, we should be able to pass the arguments to this script. That is, so whatever the type of the shell that is required, I need to pass the argument. But arguments, how do we read it? Okay, if I run this script, even though it is a prompting that. Because the script is handled only through the user prompt. But I need to change this script instead of the user prompt to the reading of this argument. Yes, first argument, this is argument 1, right? Argument 1, and if you use the space argument 2, like that, you can pass it number of arguments. That's okay, leave it off it. For the timing, 1 argument that is required for me, this script. So how do we read the arguments? Yeah, now, so the script to handle that with arguments, we need to change it within the script. Now I'm not going to use the read only, the read option from the user input. I'm going to comment this. I'm not going to use this variable from the user input, but now what I need to use it, I need to read argument which is passed while invoking the script. Yes, whenever you are executing or invoking the script, you are passing that argument. That argument I need to read it within the script. How do I do that? That is $1. 1 is for the first argument. If you have the second argument, $2. Third argument, $3. So you can use it dollar and position of that argument. Position of that argument, that is $1. That is the first argument. $2, second argument, $3, like that, $n. So I just changed that. So what I have done, I have commented this one. The reader, we are not going to use it from the user inputs. Now I would like to read the parameter or argument which is passed while invoking the script. Now if I save this program and if I run this script, suppose if I directly execute like this without passing any argument, now that is empty. You see that you opted the shell type, nothing, that is empty because we didn't pass it any argument. Whenever we didn't pass it, that $1 is empty value. $1 is one variable. One, which variable you are reading? One variable you are reading. How do we read the variable? Dollar. $1 is nothing but. So Dollar, we are reading that the variable one is nothing but first argument, 2, 3, 4. So now whenever I'm running that, I need to pass the what is the value would like to pass it to the script. Like here I need to pass the bash. Yes, you opted the shell type as a bash. Now this $1 has read the bash. Or if I change it something sh, yes, while invoking the script. So the wherever I am calling this script, I'll pass the value also, dynamic value which is required to this script. I'll specify it, and as per this value, my script which will be executed. So in the automation approach or in the cron job, you can just define this script. So it is passing this argument, the value, or if you like to change the value, change it here. But you should not touch that any script internally. Is it clear about that? The approaches, first defining that within the, assigning directly my shell variable the value, or we can override it also. But if you don't want to override it, you can define this as a read-only variable. And you don't leave it aside. That is just one concept. Just keep this in mind. But variables defining and variables reading. But values, whenever you are assigning that, the value which you within the script itself, you can define it. That is one option. Second option is you can prompt to the user to enter the value of the variables which are required for the script. Suppose you have the IP addresses or server usernames or the passwords or the environment. So they're all like required as an input. Dynamic script. Yes, that is a dynamic script. Which system I need to connect it? The system IP address we don't hard code within the script. Either user has to enter it or you need to pass that IP address of the system to the script. But how do I implement the script? Reading that arguments which are passing through the script is that is $1, $2, $3. That is a position argument. Dollar is the reading, we know it. 1, 2, 3. That is the argument position. Yeah, first option is directly assigning the value to the variable. Second option is using that read-p option, prompting to the user and taking the value and assigning the value to the variable. And third option and recommended option in the automation approaches, that is passing that the arguments to the script. While invoking the script, we are passing that the value. Whether you have the bash or shell or Python, now you can define it. And it is going to assign to this variable, and this variable, whatever you have defined in the script is going to use this value. Are you clear about these three types of the variable assignment? Assignment, value, assigning to the variable. Either directly you can hard code it. This approach is directly hard coding that. Or prompt to the user. Yeah, that is somewhat the dynamic approach, but manual intervention is there. User has to enter the value to go ahead to the next process. But without the manual intervention, if you'd like to pass that dynamic values to the scripts, plan it argument based. But how do we read that arguments within the script? With the dollar and a position argument, 1 or 2 or 3. Is it clear about this? The very, very important concept. Yeah, accepting that user input, that is with the read option, you can do that. But this is the manual intervention is required during that executing of the scripts. Read-p and what are the value he's entering, take to this variable, and this variable you can use it within the script. So this is a variable. Indirectly, you are defining that. You are declaring that value is entering by the user. That value will be assigned to this variable. Then you can read that variable. Now another scenario what we have is, yeah, the $1 already discussed, but okay, the $1, $2, I'll come back to this as a special variable concept. But before that, let me talk it one more concept of the variable assignment, the values assigning to the variables, one more approach. Suppose I need to read the system's host name. And that host name, I need to use it within the script. So host name, how do I get it? I need to run the command. So the command output, I need to assign to the variable. So how do you do that is, yeah, so you can use it, but here it is not like curly braces, just observe the clearly dollar and normal braces, parenthesis. So what is the command that you would like to execute it? That command defining dollar within the parenthesis. So what exactly is going to happen this is, so this one we can say that sub process or child command. Yeah, first this command which will be executed, that hostname command which will be executed, that output whatever we are getting, that output will be assigned to this variable. So getting the point of that. So how do we assign that the value of the command output is? So you can run the command within the curly braces, within the parenthesis. Suppose I don't want to read this. Suppose okay, my shell, okay, leave it off it, and I need to print it host name also or server name, one more variable. But the server name, I don't want to hard code like this here. So this is the server one something. If I hard code it like this, then always the server one. But if I take this script and if I run it in another system, which is on the different system name, then there also it is going to have the server one, right? So on which system we are running that, the script, that system host name, it has to take it. How do I get the host name of the system? What is the command? Host name is the command. Yes, whenever we define like this, first the host name command which will be executed, and this command output will be substituted to this variable. Then you can use it, this is server name variable. Host name of the system is, then you can try to print that variable, that is server name. How many if you just run that host name, what it is written? Yes, that is something client edition. Yes, we were given that host names in the SH configuration time. So we are giving that this host name as a client. And now if I run this script, and I need to pass that one is argument, yes, bash, and the second variable, it is going to read from the command. Yes, this is from the $1 parameter. It is reading the $1, and this is from the dollar within the braces. That's command execution. There's a host name command execution. Is it clear about that? The command output, how do we substitute to that another variable in the shell? So what is the notation here we are understanding? Dollar within the parenthesis. You can define it, the command. Which command you would like to run, define it, that command. Or suppose you need that IP address. So IP address, how to get it? First to run it or know that command, host name -I. Okay, it is returning that IP address. Or small I if we use it. Small I is not taken. Yeah, the small I is not taking. It should. Okay, small I should be there, but it is not responding. Caps I, it is all IP addresses, but particular IP address is the small I. But why it is not responding? Maybe the system was restarted long back. Maybe. Okay, it's got it finally. Good. It's got it that IP address of the system, which is showing about it IPv6 notation and Ethernet 1, and which is showing about it Ethernet 1 related IP address. Yeah, so which information is required? First to construct about your command and take that command and use that command within the braces in the shell script. Yes, if you would like to read the value of that command, you can use it, this notation. Or another notation, what do we have to say is, you can use it backward single quotation also, you can use it. Suppose hostname command, whatever we are running that's you can do that directly by using backward single quotation also. So let me use it. That is in total 2 notations we have. So to execute the command, command within the script and assigning the values. One notation is this one. Another notation is you can use it backward single quotation. This is not normal single quotation. So in the keyboard, we have that the tab, about the tab, you see that backward single quotation. Yeah, output is the same, no issues, no difference at all. Yeah, output we got it the same, but you can use it command output substitution either by using the dollar parenthesis, that is recommended, because if you have this like other arguments also to pass it, that is recommended, or you can use it backward single quotation. So this is how do we execute the command output, how do we substitute to the variable as a value. Are you clear about these points? Yeah, this is the example for it. Dollar within the parenthesis, or you can use it with the backend single quotations. The backward single quotation. Are you clear about this variables assigning the values? Total how many approaches? Yeah, if I just conclude that the total how many approaches which are using this is directly variable name equal to the value of this variable. This is one thing. Second approach is the variable name from the user prompt. User prompt, how to use it? Read -p and some message and variable name 1. So this is a different variable name, and this variable you can read it and you can assign it. Or directly you can use it, this variable also, no issues. Yeah, this is second way of assigning that, or taking that the value from the user and assigning the value to the variable. This is directly hard coding within the script, and this is from the user prompt. Third approach is what is third approach? Reading the value of the variable from the from the command line arguments. Yeah, whenever he is invoking the script, the user can pass the value which is required for this script. So that is a position based. First position, second position, second parameter, third parameter. That is $1, $2, $3, $4, like that which you can use it. This is third approach. Yeah, another use case of the variable assignment is, so system information, you need to read it and you need to use it, that information assigning to the variable. Then how do you use it that case? You can define the variable name and you can use it dollar parenthesis with which command output that you would like to assign to this variable. That command you can define it. Either you can use it this format or we can use it the backward single quotation format. Yeah. So out of all these things, which one is recommended?
Depends upon the scenario we have to use.
Yes, exactly. So depending on the scenario, but try to avoid maximum directly hard coding that. If you are expecting dynamic values, dynamic. So whenever you are executing the script and you need to pass it as environment based the variables. Yes, if you have this the kind of the scenario, don't use this. So ignore this. So if it is the manual intervention is required, use this option, but automation approach is required, use this option. So that is on the basis of the scenario and use case of the script, how you are going to read that, the input values. So to perform the business logic, you can decide that. But there are the different approaches. Yeah, system information dynamically to read it. Yes, this is the approach. So identify the command, which is the command output. That command output you can assign to the variable and you can use this variable in the next logic. Are you clear about these variable sections? Type that quickly in the chat window, this clear. Yeah, clear. That is from Usha Sushma. Yeah, if you are from the non-computers background, you need to go ahead and review that 1 or 2 times these concepts and try to practice it. That would be helpful. But mainly the confusion with the terminologies. Yes, if you are able to, whenever I am talking that, if you are follow the terminology, then you can understand the concept. Because I use it assignment or yeah, the arguments reading or invoking the script or parameters, I use it. So if you are good with this terminology and whenever I'm giving the statements, and if you are following that with the terminology, understanding about the statement, then you will enjoy this class. Yeah, that is the first types of the shells and the shell variables. Now let's move into that special variables. So what about these special variables and how the special variables are going to helpful in this shell scripting? Already we have used one special variable. Yeah, variable types, if you just observe that, yeah, when a shell is running, 3 main types of the variables are the present. So already one thing which we are defining that, yes. So variable, already we are understanding that variable name equal to value. value you are going to assign there itself, or you are reading from the user, or you are taking from that through the arguments, that is a different story. But yes, the variable is first point. Second point, already whenever we are talking the Linux, we were understanding environment variables. Yes, we can export the environment variables and we can read those environment variables also. This is another type of the variables. But what is the difference between that? The variable which are defined in the script or variable which are defined at environment level. Suppose the system level, if you observe that, if I use it env command, yes, there are variables which are available. Suppose if I would like to know that which user, yes, $user. But if I just try to print it, echo $user, that variable name, then I will get it the username. Or home directories I can get it, or present working directories I can get it. Or which type of the shell, path variable, host name of the system. Yeah, so there are all the environment variables. Even can we define that environment variables? We are talking that export one keyword, right? Export variable name and value. Suppose test is one variable and you can assign the value to this variable. So test environment variable. Some value I'm just assigning. This is also assigning that the variable name and value. But we are defining this variable at system level, environment variables level, export keyword. But instead of using that export, if I define this, that is the current shell level. That is a current script. If I use it export, that is exported at environment variables of this user. Now, do you see this anywhere test? Or let me go for grab that. Yes, so this is a variable, test variable, and this is the value which I assigned. Now I can read this variable. How do I read it? Echo the dollar and variable name. Yeah, we can define at the user level these variables, environment variables, and we can use it these variables within the script also. Yeah, if I need the current working directory, $pwd, then I will get it present working directory. Wherever I'm running the script, that script wherever it is located, that current working directory, I will get it. The pwd is the one variable. Or if I need that user information or hostname information, yes, we can use it to these environment variables within the script. This is second type of the variables. One is within the script, we can define it, the custom variables. And second type of the variables is environment variables. Environment variables advantages is that variable I can use it in the multiple shell scripts, right? Suppose once if it is defined that variable at shell level, then in this I have the two scripts, script 1 and script 2. But in these two scripts I need to use the same variable. Then I can use it, or I can define that environment variable. But normal variables we are talking that is a script scope. Within the script you can use it, but not outside of the script. Once the script is executed, that variables are gone. But environment variables, that is user level, it is setting that. In that user level, how many scripts you are going to execute it. In all the scripts, if you need that variable, then you can use it environment variable. Yeah, an environment variable is a variable that is available to any child process of the shell. That is any child process. So you are going to use it shell script 1, that is one process. Shell script 2, another process. So for these two child process, you need to have same variable. Then you can use it environment variable. Some programs need environment variables in order to function correctly. Usually a shell script defines only those environment variables that are needed by the programs that it runs. Yeah, normally the common variables we will define it as an environment variable, or we use it common variables from the system level. Yeah, two types of the variables which we can define within the script, or we can define the variables at environment level, which can be used for multiple processes. But another type of the variables, yes, special variables. So these are all some important things. A shell variable is a special variable that is set by the shell, and it is required by the shell in order to function correctly. But what about the special variables? Let's talk at that. Already we discussed, I have so two variables, which I remember that, but I'll come back to that. Yeah, the following shows a number of special variables that you can use it in your shell scripts. Suppose I need to read file name of the current script. File name, that is variables, is a file name we have given, right? That file name, I need to read it within the script. How I can read it? So the shell is providing one variable $0. Zero. Dollar is reading, we know it. Zero represents current script file name, the file name of the current script. It is going to return that. If you'd like to read the script name, then use the $0. Then we know about it, $1, $2, $3. What about all these things? These variables correspond to the arguments which you are passing that while invoking the script. But so far we have used only one argument, $1. If you pass the two arguments, $1 first argument, $2 second argument. If you are passing the 10 arguments, $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, like that up to 10. That's why it represents N. So if you are using the dollar with a numeric number is nothing but that represents you are reading that the argument, that is a position based. Yeah, the first argument is $1, second argument is $2. Suppose sometimes user can pass it two arguments. Suppose CP command if you just observe that, or ls command if you just observe that. ls command maybe user can pass the arguments, or maybe user cannot pass the arguments. He has having that optionals. Right? If I say that's only ls, it is given that. If I say that ls -n, that means I have passed. -l is argument, optional argument. Then it has to respond it as per that L. It has to take that. It has to read that input. And ls command has to give that output as per it. So here, some optional parameters. Maybe user is going to entering that, or maybe user is not going to enter that. But you need to read it. How many number of arguments that have been passed while invoking the script. So what is the special variable that is available is $hash. The number of arguments is applied to a script. Because sometimes we don't know that. Suppose you have the script which you are implementing. The user has to pass that IP address, username, password, and some environment or some other arguments. But at least mandatory arguments is server IP address is a mandatory. Username and passwords, okay, he is not passing is nothing but default username is Vagrant and the default password is Vagrant. But IP address he has to pass it. So IP address is a mandatory argument, but username and passwords are the optional arguments. Maybe whenever you are invoking the script, sometimes we use it only IP address. That is only one argument. Maybe sometimes we use it IP address, username, and password. 3 arguments. So how do you know that dynamically how many arguments that I have been passed is? That is $hash, the number represented, the number of arguments applied to a script. Okay, has passed that's our name, username, and passwords. But how do I read it all those arguments dynamically? Suppose I don't have the guarantee $1, $2, $3, or maybe $1 only. There is no guarantee on that while supplying that arguments. But I need to read all the arguments. How do I read it? All the arguments which are passed while invoking the script is $*. Dollar we know that is reading, just leave it off it. So if I use the 0, that is a file name. 1, 2, 3 like that is a position parameter to read it. Hash if I use it, that is number of arguments. Asterisk if I use it, all the arguments reading that. Yes, all the arguments are double quoted. So what is the meaning of this one is, suppose variables .sh, I am invoking that, or some, okay, the monitoring script, let's take that example, monitoring, some script which has been implemented. This is expecting IP address, username, and a password. This is the requirement. But IP is a mandatory argument. IP is mandatory argument, but username and password is optional. That means user, if he passes the username and password, passed arguments will be taken. And if he is not passing that means while invoking that script, he has used the only IP address passing that. Only this. But server to connect it, IP address, username, password 3 required. But IP, okay, mandatory 1. Username and password already defined that. Vagrant username, vagrant password within the script. If you don't pass the second argument, username is vagrant. If he doesn't pass that the password third argument, then password is a vagrant. Or if he passes the any username and password, something DevOps username, DevOps password, then it has to apply the DevOps username and password. So here dynamic, that is, there is no static approach here. Then how do we handle that? All these arguments. Hash, what it is going to say that here? What is the hash value here? That is a 3. But in this context, hash value is, what is the value? Number of arguments. Hash is number of arguments, right? $hash.
Yes, yes.
$hash here it is. The value of that is 3. But here a $hash, what is the value? If you are going to invoke like this, 1. But I need to read it, all these arguments. How do I read it? Yes, $*. If I use it, how it is going to return the value is all these arguments, whatever we have passed, it is going to read in the double quotation as a one string. Or here in this script, in this, I mean, as per this script invocation, script is the same. But while invocation here, he is passing the 3 arguments, and here he is passing as only 1 argument. So here the hash value is a 3 as per this invocation. Here the hash value is 1 as per this invocation. But what about the $hash here? The value of this one is, that is only IP. Yeah, so how do we read that all the passed arguments is passed arguments? As a single string, if you'd like to read it, then you can use it $*. But we have one more option, that is $@ also. This is also same thing to read that values of the arguments which are passing while invoking the script. But here, what is the difference between the $* and $@ is? So $* is all the arguments in the single string, but if you use the $@ 3 arguments as a 3 different strings. So IP as a one separate string, username is separate text, and password as a separate text. So output is the same, almost the same, but asterisk, all the arguments in the single double quotation as a one text it is going to returning by the shell. But if you use it $@ each argument as a separated text, that is a difference. Suppose in this context, how it is going to return that. But anyway, here only one value, there is no confusion at all. Are you clear about these arguments, these 3 arguments? And what is the $0 value? The script name, that is
File name.
Current script we can use it.
current script name, that is monitoring.sh. And here also the monitoring.sh. But especially arguments point of view, this is important. So these 3 important arguments. But output, whenever we are observing asterisk and @ both, we will see the same. But whenever we are going to use it iterations, yes, next for loop or while loop, we are going to talk it that during that time we see the some difference during the iterations. But whenever we see that output wise, there is no difference at all. During the print option, there is echo option between these two, asterisk and @ both are returning that past arguments. And hash is number of arguments which are passed while invoking the scripts. They're all very, very important, and in interviews they will stress it. How do you know that how many number of arguments are passed in the shell script? Total number of arguments. Or how do we read those arguments? What is the difference between the asterisk and hash? Sorry, @ Yeah, so next another option, what do we have? This is already we were understanding this one as a positional $1, $2. What is the $1? That is the first argument or parameter. $2. Suppose you have the script always standard one variable you are receiving. That directly you can use a $1 instead of using $hash, $asterisk and all these. You can use it directly the position argument $1. So here what is the value it is going to have the $1? IP address. What is the $2? Username. What is the $3? That is password. So you can directly read with these numbers also. But here if I use it in this invocation, same these variables, what's going to happen that here $1 is IP, username is empty, $2 is empty, $3 is also empty because it is not passed any values. Are you clear these points? Yeah, some work is going on, some disturbance. Sorry about that. Yeah, are you following all these points? So are you clear about this? About the special variables?
Yes.
$0, the number based or position based reading the arguments, or if you don't have the clarity on the position based, then you can use it these approaches, that is number of arguments and reading those arguments with either asterisk or at the data. But internally this is the difference, but both are helping the same objective, but internal this is the difference. Next, already we are observing this one more $question mark. What is the purpose of this one? Already we had this special variable somewhere. $question mark. The status of the previous command output, right? Suppose we are observing this in the ping command, that was pinged successfully or not. How do you know it? In the scripts. So the previous command was successfully or not, to know the status of it, which we can use it $question mark. This is one more special variable. So already we are observing this option. Suppose if I run it something echo hi, but is it successful or failure? You can use it echo $question mark. So that returns 0 is nothing but that is successful. If it returns non-zero, that is a failure. That is some error. Yeah, this is one more the special variable $question mark. And suppose the script is whatever we are running. The script is internally, whenever during execution, it is going to have the process ID, right? PID. The PID, or we can say the process ID. But I would like to know that the process ID of the current script which we are executing. So I would like to know that process ID of the current script which we are executing. Then how do you know that is $? So this is going to return that current script you are executing is nothing but that is one of the process background. That process ID of that the current script is going to return that. Process ID of the script. So these are all some important special variables which are available from the shell. Now if you try to understand this example for it. Yeah, suppose you can save this script in one of the file, and if you pass in the arguments, yes, how do you get the file name? $0. What is the first parameter which has been passed? That is rise. And what is the second parameter? N. What is the third parameter? $3 shine. And quoted values, that is dollar at the rate of. Yes, each variable has a separate quotation. And all that variables has single quotation, that is $*. Total number of parameters, that is $hash. And exit status of the last command. Yes, this command was successful or not, we can get it by using the $question mark. The process number of the current shell. Yes, the process ID, how do you know that the current script is $? And one more, the process number of the last background. We know about it, background and foreground options, ampersand. Yeah, if that any script which you are run it or any command which you are run it in the background, that a background the script related the process number to know that $exclamatory. This is normally less case to use it. But yes, last background job related the process number, if you'd like to know that, yes, this is the exclamatory. Dollar is a common. We know it $to read the value of the variable. But which variables we are reading? 1, 2, 3. or at the rate of, or hash, or asterisk, or exclamatory, or dollar, or question mark, or 0. Yeah, if I take this script and if I run this script, let's observe that output of this script. Special variables. But first know that all these concepts, but finally, whenever we are going to work with the script some real time, so all these things are going to help in that. Yeah, so there's a script. We are just trying to use these special variables in the script, and we'll see that output, what it is going to return in that. Suppose without passing any arguments, if I run it, now I didn't pass it any arguments, but file name we are able to get it. Yes, this is the file name which we have passed it. That is a $0 output. But first parameter, second parameter, third parameter, and a dollar at the rate of dollar asterisk, and number of parameters. Yes, we didn't pass it any parameters. That's why everything blank. Here we just invoke the script, we didn't pass it any arguments. And the last command status is this command status is that is a 0 successful. And what is the process number of this current shell? So this is the process number. And it is not having any last background process, and we don't have any process number for it. Yeah, suppose if the same script, if I run it, rise and shine. Yeah, file name, the same file name, but first parameter is the first position argument. So here, what is the delimiter it is using is, if you observe that space, right? Space is the delimiter. So this is one argument. After the space, yes, another argument, another space. But if I'd like to pass it rise and shine as a single argument,
Given single quote or without space.
we need to use it single quote or double quotes. Yes, define that entire text in a single quotation or double quotation. Yeah, rise is one variable and shine. Yes, it is using that by default. Space is the delimiter to identify that argument. And here in the output, you don't see the difference. That is a dollar at the rate of and dollar asterisk. We don't see any difference. But during working with that iterations, yes, we have the difference. And total number of parameters, 3 parameters, and lastly successful command, last command status is that is successful, and this is the process ID of this current job, and no background process was executed. Suppose if I would like to pass it as a single argument, yes, you can use it, this double quotation. Now you see that we have only first parameter, but there is no second parameter, there is no third parameter, and total arguments we have only one. So it is going to consider this is as a one argument. But if you don't use it the double quotation and if you pass it that like this, then it is going to consider as a 3 arguments. Why it is? Space is the delimiter, by default it uses that. Is it clear about the special variables?
Yes, and what is the variable used to get the number of parameters? The count.
Yeah, usage of this one is, suppose I would like to iterate it in the loop. Suppose maybe user is passing 3 arguments or the 5 arguments, we don't know that. But on the base of the number of arguments which has passed, that is, suppose he has passed the 5, then 5 times I need to iterate it to read the variables. Then I can use it. So in some condition, suppose, okay, let me talk it in the, suppose CP command, if I'm using, at least how many arguments we need to pass it? Two arguments we need to pass it. That is a source and a destination. That means if the number of arguments are less than, or less than or equal to 2, or suppose less than 3, then what is the condition we can say? We can stop that script. Was expected at least 2 arguments, but you have passed only 1 argument or 2 arguments, but at least 2 arguments. Suppose less than or equal to 2, less than 2, if we define it, then if we pass this number of arguments less than 2, then that is invalid arguments. To handle those conditions, it is going to helpful this hash options. Is it clear? That's I'll come back in some examples. I have that. Then later we need to handle the script. Suppose so whenever now we are allowing this script without passing the arguments also. But we have the condition. So if this script he is executing is nothing but he has to pass it at least 3 arguments. That means number of arguments is equal to 3. Then move to the next logic. Or if the number of arguments less than 3, then exit the script and show the error to the user. Invalid arguments are passed. Please use this format to work with the command. So that kind of the messages to display that we can use it that hash options. And thus we have examples. I'll come back in the next some scenarios or use cases. Yeah, are you clear about the special variables and variables reading from the user, reading from the documents, and you reading, directly defining this within the script as a read-only variable if it is required, defining the read-only variables, or command output substituting that to the variables. How do you do that? So these are all the variables mechanism. Values assigning to the variables. That is very, very, very important. First, any script you are writing is nothing but how you are going to take the inputs which are required for the script. That is important. Then logics and all that, that is on the base of the operation which you are implementing. But first, at least, how do I read that inputs which are required to perform the logic of that particular function? Those inputs handling is very important, especially in our automation world. Arguments passing and arguments reading is very, very important. Or some variables defining within the script itself the values, that is also. But manual interactions, that's we don't see normally if you are approaching that automations. But if you are going to use it internal scripts, okay, that's like you have the server connectivity and getting that disputation and all that. Yes, if you have about your own, yes, you can use it that. But automation world, either defining the variables within the script, that is not recommended for the dynamic values. Dynamic values, argument based, take it there. And the special variables using that. Yeah, so that's the concept. And I have shared that the examples which you can access it and you can practice it. And tomorrow we started about decision making. That is conditional based statements. How do we implement it within the shell scripting? Decisions, like maybe if you know that if else, or nested if else in the normal programming. Just if you are able to recollect it to the concept, that's fine. Or if you are good with the programming, that is really helpful. But if you don't know also, no issues. But try to refer that 1 or 2 times these videos and try to understand the keywords first. Then you will be knowing about the program. Programming logic is about your analytical skills. So that is how you are analyzing about your problem statements. That is based, the logic can be implemented. But first of all, program to understand it, terminologies are the very basic inputs. Yeah, so that's all from my side for today. Understanding the variables, special variables, shell types, shebang options. Yeah, so with all this, and tomorrow we'll move into that next concept, that is decision making, that is condition based statements, how to implement in the shell script. Any queries, questions, please? Yeah, good for today. Yes, good. Thank you. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Clear. Ajay, good. Thank you. Yeah, so thanks to everyone. So I'm going to log off for today, and I shared that already the one course, just to start the course and try to use it these samples, but don't copy and paste it, and we didn't give that any copy and paste option. So that type it each and every line and see that the exceptions and work with that, the facing that the problems. Yeah, sit it some time before the system and try to practice all these scripts. Yeah, good. Thank you. I'm going to log off for today.